Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Balabha Giribharatari Jaya Gopi Jana Balabha Giribharatari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Balabha Giribharadari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakatar Ashtatar Shata His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jagat Guru Savior of the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki. Hare Krishna. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyanan Gyanan Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Hina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I am asking for the blessings of my spiritual masters who are forcing open my darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, for the assembled devotees, most of whom are my superiors. So I ask for your blessings in trying to say something that I hope will be useful to you all. For the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to their lordships, Sri Sri Radha Giridhari, to please engage me and all of us in their devotional service. Okay, please. So it's the appearance day of Lord Nrsingadev. Okay, so Lord Nrsingadev is, he's the coolest. He's just cool. And what I mean by that is he is the incarnation of God's righteous anger, who comes to protect the devotees and to defeat the demons. So if you like, as you know, I do, because I'm materially conditioned, if you like action movies, if you like horror movies, if you like battle scenes, the pastime of Lord Nrsingadev has all of that and more, right? Sometimes people ask, you know, we all know these stories, you know, many of us have heard them since we were small children. Every year, it's the same appearance day. It's the same incarnation of Krishna. It's the same pastime. So, you know, why do we repeat these stories over and over? And one reason is because the pastimes are non-different from the Lord. So by hearing the pastime, just like worshiping the deity, chanting the holy name, serving the devotees, these are processes of purifying our heart. Just by hearing these stories, which are actually entertaining to hear, the Lord is giving us his mercy. And I know for myself, the pastime of Lord Nrsingadev is just so inspiring. This year at Thanksgiving, we had a guest in our home, and he asked for my husband to explain who is Lord Nrsingadev. And Leela Sara and Prajenda Kumar were there. And this poor young man, suddenly the four of us were like, oh, Nrsingadev, you know. And so he got more than he expected, you know. And each one of us would say something, and then someone else would go, oh, yes, yes, and one more thing, because we were so inspired. And I hope that he was happy after hearing all of this, but I know we were blissful. So these pastimes are so blissful. And then, of course, the pastimes are meant to teach us something, right? So that long-winded introduction, let's talk about the pastime, right? One of the interesting things about this setup, you have Hiranyakashipu, who is the most powerful demon in the universe. You have his son Prahlad, who is a 5-year-old boy. These are, you know, the people who are in conflict. So it seems really out of balance, right? But then you have the Lord coming in his form as Nrsingadev to put everything right. And one of the things that we start with is understanding that this most powerful demon, who is he? Who is Hiranyakashipu? What's his backstory? Right, he's one of the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha. He's one of the Lord's servants who is a pure devotee, right? You can't serve the Lord without being a pure devotee. But because the Lord actually has the desire to interact with his devotee, there's, you know, a long story about how this doorkeeper, Jai, ends up in the position of a demon because he has offended devotees who came to see the Lord by preventing them from entering. He's cursed to go down to the material world to act at the Lord, as the Lord's opponent for 3 lifetimes. Well, the Lord wants to fight. You know, we all have desires. We are the Lord in minute quantity. Our qualities come from the Lord, right? So we sometimes, you know, ladies, be honest, sometimes don't you want to just fight with your husbands? You know, but we have that desire to contest and contend, right? Krishna also has that desire. But who's qualified to fight with Krishna, right? In order to have that personal interaction with the Lord, you have to be a pure devotee. So Hiranyakashipu comes and he takes this position as the Lord's opponent, as a service to the Lord, in effect. And one of the points behind that is we don't always know who's who, right? We have our limited point of view, and I know my mind tells me all the time, that's a demon, that's a devotee, that's a demon, that's a devotee, right? But we have to keep in mind, we don't know anybody's backstory. We don't even know our own backstory, right? What kind of things did I do in my last life? No idea, don't want to know, right? Okay. So Hiranyakashipu comes to the material world. Now I'm going to jump ahead. And in this particular lifetime, he is Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu is a very interesting figure, right? I think it was C.S. Lewis who said once that Satan, you know, the enemy of God, whoever that may be, he has to have some good qualities, right? If you don't have any good qualities, you can't be an opponent of anything. So Hiranyakashipu actually has a lot of the qualities that we aspire for, right? He's intelligent. He even has spiritual knowledge. When his brother's killed, he preaches to his nephews and to his sisters-in-law, saying, look, don't lament for the body. The soul is eternal. So he's actually giving them spiritual knowledge. He's strong, he's determined, he's austere. No one can do austerities like Hiranyakashipu. All right? So keep that in mind as we're moving forward. In addition to all of these, he's like I said, he's ambitious. He's also a great planner. So this man does not think small, right? You know, you want to take over a corporation, you want to take over, you know, you become the president of your student body, or he decided to take over the universe. All right? So here he is. He's going to practice austerities to get the power to take over the universe. So not only is he a good campaigner, but he's able to do these austerities. And for 125 years, he stands on the tip of his toes with his arms raised in the air in a mystic yoga process that is so potent, he can maintain his subtle body, even though ants have eaten away the entire gross material body. He's still maintaining his subtle body and still keeping this yogic meditation going. And it becomes so intense that the universe is heating up so much that all the living entities in the universe are disturbed, right? Everybody's suffering because of the heat that he's throwing off. Raise your hand if you know anybody more powerful in the material world than Hiranyakashipu, right? Kanai All right? This is some pretty intense power. This is power we can't even understand, right? An atomic bomb is going to disturb part of this planet, right? He's disturbing the entire universe with his heat. So Lord Brahma comes to him. Lord Brahma is being informed that everyone, you know, all the demigods are fried. You know, help, do something, fix this. You're in charge, right? So like the temple president, right? Something's wrong, you got to fix it. Okay. So he comes to Hiranyakashipu and he says, "What do you want?" And Hiranyakashipu says, "I want to be immortal." This is his, you know, his agenda for his plan to take over the universe. That's an easy one for Lord Brahma to answer. He says, "I can't do that. I'm not immortal. And what we don't have, we can't give to someone else." All right? But Hiranyakashipu is resourceful, right? He's not going to be defeated by this, you know, minor glitch of Lord Brahma not being able to grant him what he wants. And he would have, Hiranyakashipu would have made an expert contract lawyer. He says, "Okay, fine, then do this for me. I want it so that I'm not going to be able to be killed by a man or an animal. not by any weapon, not inside, not outside, not during the daytime, not during the nighttime, not in the sky or on the ground. And he covers every contingency, right? And Lord Brahma, after each request, says, okay, done. I can do that. Done, 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 and done. So now Hiranyakashipu thinks, okay, I'm essentially immortal. I'm virtually immortal, right? And he proceeds to take over the entire universe. He conquers the demigods. He kicks them out of their abodes. He takes over Lord Indra's palace. He gets the demigod's treasury. He has everything, right? You think of somebody that you think of as being materially opulent, and they're a drop in the bucket to Hiranyakashipu. He got it all. And he had power and control. Everyone was afraid of him. The earth even produced grains in great profusion out of fear of him, right? The demigods worshipped him out of fear, right? Everyone wanted to do what Hiranyakashipu wanted of them because he was so powerful and they feared him so much. However, all right, and this is always the flaw in the plans of the greatly ambitious man is your family life is going on and you're not there looking out for it, right? So his wife, while he's doing this great austerity, his wife is captured, pregnant wife is captured by the demigods. Their plan is to kill the child in her womb, thinking that this child will be a great demon like his father, so we should take this opportunity to stop this, right? Enter Narada Muni, who knows more than any entity, any living entity in the material world. And he says, no, right? You can't do this because this boy, this child, will be a great devotee of the Lord. Right? And he takes Kayadhu to his ashram, where he instructs her, he accepts her service, and he instructs her in spiritual knowledge. He teaches her about Lord Vishnu. He teaches her about the power of the holy names. And in doing so, he makes a potent example of how a devotee interacts with those who lack shelter, right? He doesn't say, look, you're the wife of a demon, you're a woman, and, this is a male ashram, I can't help you. No, he helps her anyway, right? So the concern for the living entity is exemplified in his example. Now Kayadhu hears but doesn't retain. So when her husband returns from his austerities, she goes back to him and falls immediately under his sway, looking at the world again from his point of view. But the child in the womb, Prahlad, he also heard. I mean, ladies, we know, right? When you're pregnant, the child hears everything that's going on, right? You want to have good influences when you're pregnant so that your child hears good things. And Prahlad heard the words of Narada Muni. Not only did he hear them, but he accepted them. He took them into his heart and he was purified. He became a pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada points out that this example shows us it isn't by austerity, it isn't by power, it isn't by sacrifice, it isn't by any of these material qualities that one becomes a pure devotee. Right? What is it that Prahlad Maharaj had that others don't? Maybe we don't have quite yet. Receptivity. He accepted the instructions of his spiritual master and he took to them wholeheartedly. That's what it takes. Okay. So Prahlad, he's the, I don't know what to call it, the secret agent, the undercover agent in the household of Hiranyakashipu. Now Hiranyakashipu's whole worldview is based on power and control, right? I have the power, I control everything, and therefore I'm in the right. This is what I'm entitled to, this is what I'm owed, and this is the highest platform to live on, right? Everyone in this environment is going along with this worldview. The school that Prahlad is sent to is teaching him based on this worldview. There are no other devotees there. It's not like, you know, he's being coached in secret by someone who's saying, oh, no, you know, forget all this, worship the Lord. No. Just by hearing from Narada Muni, before he was even born, he took this into his heart so firmly that it wasn't affected by living in this environment. Not only did he take this into his heart, but he shared it with others, right? So he's 5 years old, he's going to school, and his father says, what's the most important thing you've learned, right? He says, to worship Lord Vishnu, to serve the Lord. What? Wait, what? You know, that can't be right, right? This is the reaction of our false ego when someone challenges us, right? Immediately the mind goes, no, you didn't say that. That didn't happen. That can't be right. And we move from there into anger, right? And that's exactly what happens with Hiranyakashipu. But like most parents, he doesn't immediately blame the child. First, he says, bring those teachers here, right? Isn't that what we do? We call up and say, hey, what's going on? Why are you picking on my child, right? And the teachers say, we don't know where he got this from. It's not us. You know, we wouldn't dare. You know, not only do we not believe this nonsense, but we wouldn't dare. But Prahlad, you know, he can't be swayed, and he keeps sharing this information with his classmates, and they're becoming affected. And Hiranyakashipu, his control is threatened, right? Someone is saying that there's a higher authority than he is. He's firmly rooted in the belief that he owes his power to no one but himself. Even though Lord Brahma gave him the benediction, still, in his mind, he is the one, you know, who is the source of everything. And he cannot bear to hear that this is not true. So he actually takes this to, I think we could call it somewhat of an extreme, and decides that his son needs to be executed. All right? And we're laughing, right? But that's the logical extension of a philosophy that's based on power and control, right? I should be able to control everything in my environment. Everything should be the way I want it to be for my sense gratification, and things that don't fit in there need to be eliminated, right? Sometimes we eliminate those things by deciding, I'm not going to be friends with you anymore. I'm not going to listen to that radio station anymore, whatever. You control the universe, you know, what do? Where do you go? You know, so this point of view has to be eliminated. So Hiranyakashipu is acting essentially out of fear. My control is being threatened, so I have to destroy, excuse me, to destroy you. He's doing what we all do, which is attempting to control material circumstances in order to protect our own happiness, right? We're all little Hiranyakashipus at some point in our life. So we're all trying to make choices that are going to maximize our happiness and minimize our distress. The problem with that is we don't understand the actual way to become happy. Material happiness and distress, which is what Hiranyakashipu is dealing with, is in a sense beyond our control, right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Matra sparshas tukanteya shitoshna sukha dukada agama paino nityas tam titikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, the appearance and disappearance, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget the English now. The non-permanent appearance and disappearance of happiness and distress are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. All right? They arise from sense perception only, and we have to learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. In other words, happiness and distress come of their own accord. I think, wow, I did that so successfully, right? I just argued that case so amazingly, and my client was impressed, and the judge ruled in my favor because I'm so cool. No. Happiness and distress come to us according to our karma, based on the actions of the three modes of material nature operating with the time factor. All right? So, the upshot of all of this is that Hiranyakashipu had more control, more power, more opulence, more everything than anybody. Was he happy? Was he satisfied? No. No. Srila Prabhupada points out he was not happy because he was still serving his senses. All right? So if we want to become happy, we need to take note of this example. This is actual proof that no matter how materially successful we are, no matter what arrangements we make, that is not going to provide us with ultimate happiness. And there's nothing wrong with having a plan for your life and, you know, having a budget and, you know, having career goals. All of those are fine things. But we have to understand their limits. All right? Hiranyakashipu bet everything on those things. That's all he had in his basket. So he was still unhappy. All right. Prahlad, on the other hand. All right. Prahlad he's a small child, right? So how's he going to fight with his father? His father says, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to have you killed. What is Prahlad going to do? Right? You know, but he doesn't do what we would expect, right? If someone says they're going to kill me, I'm probably going to plead for my life, right? I'm going to try to escape. I'm going to, you know, call for help. I'm going to do something, right? I mean, wouldn't you? If your life was threatened, we're going to freak out, right? Okay, but Prahlad, he's fearless. Why is he fearless? Because he has faith in Krishna. He has full faith in Krishna. And one definition I've heard that Srila Prabhupada used for faith is having faith means we know there is no other shelter than Krishna. And that's exactly what Prahlad Maharaj understood, that it doesn't matter what anyone else does or tries to do. Krishna is my only shelter. The holy names are my only shelter. Right? So he takes shelter of the holy names, and it's not that he thinks, okay, you know, I'm going to take shelter of the holy names, and if push comes to shove, Nrsimhadev is going to jump out of that pillar and save me. No, he doesn't know what's going to happen. But he knows that no matter what happens, if he lives or if he dies, as long as he's taking shelter of Krishna, everything will be okay. And in fact, Krishna does protect him. Right? The oil, burning oil doesn't burn him, the snakes don't bite him, the poison doesn't kill him. So many different ways Hiranyakashipu tries, and he can't defeat Prahlad. His servants cannot kill Prahlad. And another point about Prahlad Maharaj's fearlessness is after all this, all right, this man has tried to kill him in so many ways. This cannot have been fun. You know, and even as an adult, I think about my father being angry enough to kill me, and it breaks my heart. What to speak of a 5-year-old child, right? You know, there's no greater rejection of a child than not only saying I want to kill you, but literally trying to kill him. All right. But in spite of this, you know, when it comes around again, and his father wants to know, what are you thinking? He doesn't say, oh, Dad, you know, let's not talk about that, or, gee, I just think you're really keen, you know. What does he say? He says, hey, you know, here it is. Worship the Lord. This is the point of life. That's fearlessness, you know. And he continued, even in the face of his father's opposition, he continued to share Krishna consciousness with his classmates. That's compassion, right? Okay, so, and the root of that is that faith in the spiritual master and faith in the holy name. So he tells his father, and this is an important lesson. He says, when his father, you know, after his father's tried to kill him, you know, he's still willing to share this information with his father. And he says, except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, then one comes to the position of worshiping the Lord perfectly. And Srila Prabhupada says, in the purport to that verse, we create friends and enemies according to the mind, but actually there are no friends or enemies. Pandita Samadarshinaha. To understand this is the preliminary condition for entering into the kingdom of devotional service. I'm going to read that line again. To understand this, that there are no friends or enemies, is the preliminary condition for entering into the kingdom of devotional service. Okay. So this world runs on the idea of friends and enemies, right? I like you, I don't like you, you like me, you don't like her, right? The news, come on, you know, it's all about friends and enemies, right? So how is it that there are no friends or enemies? How do we understand that? Because we have to go back to our real identity. The verse that Srila Prabhupada quoted from the Bhagavad Gita explains, Krishna is explaining that the enlightened sage sees with equal vision the cow, the elephant, the dog eater, the Brahmin, you know, all these different classes of living entities, because everyone is the son, the child of Krishna. We're all an infinitesimal spark of Krishna's splendor. We're all equal, we're all interconnected, right? So to understand that and to give up this idea of friends and enemies is required if we want to enter that kingdom of devotional service. And I feel like I'm standing outside the doorway of that kingdom, you know, maybe a little far away, but I can see in, and I can see the devotees who have entered into that kingdom. And I can tell you that there is more bliss and happiness there than there is anywhere in the material world. So we want this. We may not always know we want it, but we want it. All right. So Prabhupada is saying this conception of friends and enemies comes from the mind, right? So this is another very important point that comes, you know, that this pastime is illustrating, that the mind is the root of a lot of our problems, right? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that for one who controls the mind is the greatest friend, but for one who fails to do so, it's the worst enemy, right? So if we can control the mind, which is, Prahlad Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada concur, the mind is the real enemy, right? It isn't that person who's getting on my last nerve, right? It isn't my husband who drove the car and used up all the gas and didn't put any more in, right? It's, or my kids who are much more likely to do that. It's my mind. It's how I see things, how I view things. And the thing about the mind is the mind has been in the service of our false ego from time immemorial, right? Whenever somebody honks at me on the freeway, I have to fight the instinct to want to make a rude gesture, right? Because by honking at me, they're telling me I did something wrong, all right? I have to be honest, I probably did, but I don't want to own that, right? Like, how dare you honk at me, you know? You can't drive, I can drive, right? So that tendency of the mind to defend our false ego, that's crippling us. You know, that holds us back from so much. And the false ego is such an incredibly weighty burden, right? We don't realize it because we've become so identified with that false ego. But when you meet devotees who've given it up, they're joyful, you know, they're blissful. And we can have that if we're willing to give up the false ego. And it starts with processes of purification, but it also starts with controlling the mind. My husband was chanting japa with Gunagraj Goswami many years ago, and Maharaj just started spontaneously laughing. So my husband naturally asked, Maharaj, what's so funny? And Maharaj said, sometimes my mind says such crazy things, I just have to laugh. Right? And so that's become kind of a catchphrase for our family. And it's true. The mind, my mind anyway, constantly says crazy things. And that ability to stand back from our thoughts and feelings, you know, and just kind of assess them and laugh at them, that's a huge, huge benediction. So, all right. So I also wanted to say something about this fearlessness, this issue of fearlessness. One of the phrases that I like to use when I'm feeling fear is this, I don't know, acronym or whatever you call it. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Okay. So Hiranyakashipu is experiencing this. He thinks, I'm in control. And as long as I stay in control, I'm going to be happy. That's false evidence appearing real. And when Prahlad threatens that sense of control, he becomes angry and he's acting out and his mind is disturbed. And he's gone through all this incredible austerity to become happy and he's still not happy. Right? But because Prahlad understands his real identity, understands who is actually protecting him, he's not afraid. Right? So if we can see things through the eyes of Guru, if we can see things through the eyes of Scripture, we're going to be protected. We're not going to feel fear. Or at least when our mind starts chattering, you know, on the fear channel, we can turn the volume down. Actually, Krishna is the only protector. Nrsingadev is the only protector, right? No one else can protect us. You know, sometimes we think, oh, you know, my parents, we worry our parents are going to leave, right? And I don't care how old you are. When your parent leaves, you feel, oh my gosh, where's my shelter, you know? But the truth is, as parents, we can't protect our children. I still remember the heart-stopping moment when I was out in that patio about 25 years ago, and I looked up, and there's my like 4 or 5-year-old child on the roof of the temple looking down, right? And, you know, terror. But there was nothing I could do. He's up there, I'm down here, right? A child becomes ill, right? Wars happen, you know, automobile accidents happen, planes crash, crazy people with guns shoot things up. We think we can protect our children, but we can't. We think we can protect our finances, you know. We can take precautions, but ultimately, Krishna is the only shelter. So if we understand that, then we can put fear in its proper place. So I also wanted to talk about a couple of examples of devotees, because sometimes we think, okay, look, Prahlad Maharaj, he's a pure devotee, right? Of course he wasn't afraid, you know? He could just chant Hare Krishna and poison wouldn't poison him. If I chant Hare Krishna, I'm still going to get poisoned, so where does that leave me? But there are examples, contemporary examples, of devotees who have had that kind of faith, right? When I was in Moscow last year, we were able to meet with some of the original pioneer devotees, Russian devotees. And these devotees took up Krishna consciousness and spread Krishna consciousness during the worst times of the USSR. Religion was outlawed, and many of them were tortured and went to prison, lost everything, because their desire to serve Krishna outweighed their sense of, you know, putting themselves at risk. And because they are such advanced devotees, none of them would tell us about their own experiences, right? They always said, oh, I didn't do anything, my story's not important. But there was one devotee that they did like to talk about. His name was Ambarish Maharaj. And at that time, you couldn't import Bhagavad Gita or other spiritual books into Russia. You know, they didn't have any. The original Bhagavad Gita ended up in Russia because Shamasundar went there with Srila Prabhupada, and Malati snuck a Bhagavad Gita into his suitcase. All right, so there's one Bhagavad Gita. You know, maybe there's a couple other translations in universities that Sanskrit professors are using, but for all intents and purposes, there's one Bhagavad Gita in the entire USSR. But somehow, thousands and thousands of people are becoming devotees, right? How does this happen? Because those devotees copied out, page by page, that Bhagavad Gita. They'd copy a chapter, they'd, you know, put it into a little pamphlet, and they would distribute it, okay? Anybody involved in this process could be executed, right? So Ambarish Maharaj was one of the devotees that organized a great number of devotees to carry this out. And he would always tell them, we're not going to act on the basis of fear because Nrsingadeva is going to protect us. And he would actually take extra risks in order to cultivate this mood of depending on Lord Nrsingadeva. The devotees tell of one time when a shipment of these pamphlets is coming in on a train. It's completely contraband, completely forbidden, all right? But they're going to go down to the train station and get these books from the devotees who are bringing them and take them and distribute them. And when they get there, there are all these police officers, you know, stationed at the station patrolling. And of course the devotees are afraid, right? All they have to do is look in this bag and we're all going to prison, okay? And so Ambarish, he asks the police officers, he says, hey, we've got all these bags that we need to put into this vehicle, and could you help us? And they do. All right. So not only were the devotees able to get this done, but the police officers also made some spiritual benefit by transporting sacred literature. So win-win for everybody. But the point is that by acting on this basis of faith, it's so potent. These devotees, they don't just think Krishna's going to take care of them. They know in the core of their hearts, right? So they've suffered. You know, I don't want to minimize their suffering in any way. They suffered, some of them died. But that process of surrendering to the Lord and taking shelter of the Lord is extremely potent. There's another example from the same region of the world. There was a woman, her name was Padasevanam. She was a grandmother when she got one of Prabhupada's books, all right? I think it was the Bhagavad Gita. And she read it, and she was convinced. She became a devotee. The first time she went to the temple, you know, the devotees are speaking with a group, and the devotee who was speaking was called away. He had to, you know, go take care of something for a few minutes. When he came back, Padasevanam was explaining the Bhagavad Gita to the other guests. Okay? So she was sold out, right? She sold her condo. She told the devotees, I'll give you the Lakshmi, I just want to be able to stay in the temple with you, you know. And she had a very personal relationship with her deities. She used to take her Gopal deity, you know, and give him a ride in a remote control car, you know. He likes it, right? Little unusual devotee. There was a point at which she saw the movie, I think it's called Journey to Ahobilam, or The Road to Ahobilam. It's a documentary about a young devotee man who went to this temple of Nrsingadeva in Ahobilam. And this temple, it can't be reached by car, right? You have to trek through the jungle and climb mountains, and, you know, it's way out in the wilderness. In this documentary, it's explained that the deity is worshipped only once a week, because the pujari only goes out there once a week and no one lives near there. So Padasevanam, she felt in her heart that Lord Nrsingadeva needed to be worshipped. She told the devotees, Gopal told me I have to go to Ahobilam and take care of Lord Nrsingadeva. Okay, well, you know, Mataji, you're 74. You've never been out of your country. You don't speak, you know, any of the Indian languages. You've never been to India. We're not, you know, maybe this isn't such a good idea, right? We're not even sure where this temple is. But she insisted. And she went to India, and there was one man there from her community that she knew, and she contacted him and said, I need you to take me to this temple. And he also said, you know, this is not a good idea. But she showed up, and he thought, okay, well, let's go to Vrindavan first, right? I'll take her to Vrindavan, I'll show her some Nrsingadeva deities, you know, maybe she'll be pacified. She says, no, how can I go to Vrindavan and enjoy myself when Nrsingadeva is suffering? Right? So they go, they take her. Before they could go to this temple, they had to find the pujari to take them, and they had to, you know, wait for the day when the pujari is going to go, because how else are you going to find it? Someone's got to show you. So they show up, and this pujari, he himself is 70 years old, right? You know, and they show up, and Padasevanam's, you know, I've come here to serve Nrsingadev. And he says, that's impossible. You know, even the men can't stay out there. It's too dangerous. There's tigers, there's literally tigers, snakes, you know, all kinds of things. So this is just not possible. And this fearless woman says, look, Gopal told me to do this. You know, you can help me or you cannot help me, but I am going. You know, and she says, if Krishna wants to kill me, no one can save me. If Krishna wants to save me, no one can kill me. Right? So her faith was so inspiring that this pujari said, okay, I'll take you. When they get there, there's a cave, right, with the deity. And there's I don't know how to describe it. A rickety building, you know, like a shack, that's it, a shack or a hut or something. You know, the door is all warped and it's halfway falling down. And she's ecstatic because here's a room for her deities, right? And so she puts up her tent and she's good to go, right? I can't even go visit my daughter without knowing that I'm gonna have, you know, a nice room to stay in and a private bathroom, right? There wasn't even running water here. She had to hike down to the river to get water to bathe and drink and all of this. But the people, the local people, became so inspired by her service and her faith that they started to help her. They built her, you know, a place to stay. They, you know, came and helped and offered paraphernalia and resources so she could begin the worship. The newspapers found out about it. The governor of the state found out about it. He went to visit her, and he's like, okay, you know what? We claim to be devotees, but here's the real devotee. And they actually, you know, made a pathway to get her water and built her a brick house and, you know, so many things, and put money so that there would be facility for the deity to be worshipped. Eventually, you know, after performing this service and inspiring all these people, inspiring a whole community, a whole state to worship the Lord, she did leave her body. You know, I understand she was kneeling. They found her body. She was kneeling at the altar with her head on the feet of her Krishna deity, holding the Bhagavad Gita. So, you know, how could there be a better exit? But then there's just two little stories that I want to share. The devotee who helped her get to Ahovalam, he says, once upon a time, I closed the temple at night and began going down the mountain when I heard screaming and the sound of banging dishes. I thought, maybe a monkey. Next morning, I came and everything was usual. I asked Padasevanam, what happened yesterday? She said, nothing, it's all good. But I heard screaming and banging dishes. Oh, that's just Nrsingadev. He didn't want to eat, so I was swearing. And this last little nugget to put things in perspective, at least for me, when she was asked, you know, wasn't it difficult? Didn't you have problems when you first came here and everything was so austere and you're trying to start this worship? And she says, no problems. Just one time a cobra bit me. And I told Nrsingadev, if you want me to stay and serve you, that's fine. If you want me to go, that's fine. You just let me know. And he told me to wash out the wound with Charnamrita, and I did, and I was fine, you know. So this is what's being offered to us, you know. If we have the faith, if we surrender to the process, if we take what our spiritual masters are offering us and take it seriously, then we can have these kind of relationships with the Lord. Thank you all very much for listening. Hare Krishna.